Hi guys, it's Kelly Lanavola here, and I'm back with another video for W+9. Today we are going to be making kind of a pastel, non-specific holiday card. I'm going to be using the holiday cheer set, the rounded rectangles, the snowflakes trio, and then lots of glitter paper because I love me some glitter. But I did show you the hand-lettered holiday. I didn't end up using it. I actually ended up going with the sentiment that is included in the holiday cheer set. So basically what I wanted to do was, Distress Oxides are less bold than Distress Inks, and they give like this really pretty like kind of pastel chalk finish, and I thought that that would be really, really awesome on some snowflakes. And we all have friends that maybe aren't religious, or you want to send them, a little bit of like, hey, I'm thinking of you during this time, but maybe they don't have a specific holiday that they are I guess really passionate about. So these are really good cards for that. They're also just, I just think the color combo is pretty because it's kind of like a rainbow. But anyway, so I just used Distress Oxide inks, and I did an ink blended background on the glitter paper as well as the W+9 white cardstock. Just in, what did I use? Worn lipstick, wilted violet, broken china, to peacock feathers, to cracked pistachio. Now, if you watch my channel, you've noticed that I've been putting perfect pearls on everything. And how I got started putting perfect pearls on everything is because I started by using the W+9 shimmer spray. So I just loved it. I thought, I still do. I don't know why I said it loved like it's past tense. Love it. Think it's just super pretty to put like spatters of shimmer on the background. And so before I even had the perfect pearls, I had done it with the shimmer spray, and it gives a very similar effect. So I set that aside to dry after I put that, which was like, I don't know, 5 minutes ago in this video. Anyway, I am using Copic Safe ink to stamp down 2 pairs of mittens, 2 hats. There are multiple images in this set, so if you didn't want to color them, which is what I'm going to be doing, you can stamp them with solid color. And there's tons of, inking techniques that you can do that way, so you can get a multicolor look. Or just, they'd be pretty just regular solid color. But we're going to be doing Copic coloring. So I knew that I wanted some areas of these hats and mittens, which, by the way, I would totally wear these. These are so cute. I love the little mittens that have like the little finger holes in them, because then I can still play on my phone when I'm outside freezing. Anyway, but I knew I wanted to color part of it white, but I wasn't really sure what my color scheme was going to be yet. So I decided I was just going to color the whole thing I was going to shade the whole hat, both mittens, with grays. And when you're coloring objects white, you want to leave a white area and just add in the shadows. So for this C5, I'm really only adding it where the folded over mitten part is sitting on top, and then where the finger holes are for the hat, I'm only adding it just basically around the edges, just to give it some dimension. But what this is going to do is it's going to make it really, really easy when it comes time to do the rest of the coloring, because I won't have to worry about trying to go back in with these white colors, and if I'm going to drag some color or pick up other colors, I won't have to worry about it. It'll just be done. If you don't have a lot of Copics, this is another way that you can kind of stretch your markers. If you do all of your shading in gray and then just pick one color to color over top of it, you won't actually cover up the shading. So if I wanted them to be this really pastel blue-green, this is a BG11, I could just leave it like this and they're still going to look shaded. I didn't do that because I had the peacock feathers in the background, which is a little bit of a bolder blue-green. And so I decided that I still was going to go in with some of the darker colors, but it wasn't necessary to get the dimension. I really only did it just to get the intensity of color that I was looking for. So here I'm doing the shading basically the same way. I'm adding it in between the fingers. I'm adding it where the mitten is laying on top of the back of the glove, like the fold over mitten part. And then on the hat, I'm adding it to kind of the left and right side so it will have a more rounded appearance. For this darker color, I'm really adding just a minimal amount just to bump up that contrast. That's really, I mean, such a little amount. And a lot of times people are afraid of darker colors. You don't need much. You don't need a lot. So if you think that, maybe you want to step up your coloring or you want more dimension in your coloring, just add like one little line of dark color, and I promise you, you will see a difference. And then maybe that will give you a little bit more confidence to try adding a little bit more dark in other pieces. In these particular pieces, it was so small, I didn't need a lot to get the contrast that I was looking for. I kind of looked at my Copic color chart to see what pink was going to match this worn lipstick with it blended into the wilted violet. So I ended up with an R81 and a RV34, which is kind of like more of a dusty pink, but it did match the color scheme that I had going on. Even though I like brighter colors, this matched better. And so sometimes you just have to sacrifice those bright colors. But for this particular set of gloves and its hat, I decided I was going to add really just minimal pink and let that blue-green kind of be the star of the show. For I'm lying. I'm going back because I did not shade. I didn't know, remember I said I didn't know what my color scheme was going to be. So I went back in with my C3 and added just a little bit of shading on the trim. And then there's a section that is the second part of the hat that's drawn behind that would be darker, so I added shading to that as well. For the second set, I colored them. I left them mostly white and then added the same colors in the accents, but I wanted it to be just a little bit brighter, so I actually ended up going in with a VO4 and just coloring all the areas that I had previously colored pink, just to kind of brighten them up a little bit, because I knew it was going to be on a white background and I was going to need all the color I could get. Speaking of that same set, it's a little difficult with these smaller images to make sure that they stay white. So I did end up going back in with my white gel pen just to kind of clean up some areas. Nobody will ever know the difference. I am going to outline my images. You certainly don't have to do this. It's just something I like to do. If you choose to outline them beforehand, please do it before you use the die cuts. Otherwise, you're going to be chasing them around. It's going to be a nightmare. The other thing I did before I did my die cutting was I went in with my colorless blender, because I'm a little bit sloppy when I do my coloring. I don't mean to be, but apparently I cannot, in fact, stay in lines, and so sometimes I have to go in and clean up. That's no big deal. That's why the colorless blender exists. So I put my dies in place. I'm also going to use the largest of the rounded rectangles to cut out from the Distress ink background I created. And then I'm going to use the Snowflake Trio on this glitter paper that we colored. I love this. I love this so much. There are no words to tell you how much I love this gradient on this glitter paper. It's like all of the things in the world that I love coming together. It's amazing. So anyway, lots and lots of die cutting, so much die cutting. Ran all this stuff through my Big Shot. I cut out some snowflakes also in just plain white glitter paper. I'm going to use my little craft pick just to pop out the little areas in the center. This glitter paper cuts so great, so simple, so easy. I didn't have any issues, just had to poke out those little teeny tiny ones in the center. I kind of laid out what I wanted my card to be so I could figure out where I was going to put my sentiment. And I'm putting this into my Misty so that I can just stamp it down one time and I know exactly where it's going to be, and it's going to be straight and I'm good to go. I'm going to be stamping in W+9 black dye ink. Just because it's a good bold ink, and especially with all of like the kind of color and stuff we got going on here, want to make sure that we get a good crisp image. Because even though there is a lot of color and stuff going on, they are more on the clean and simple side. So here I popped this up on some Scotch foam tape. I'm going to put that on a white card base. I almost could just leave it like this, honestly, because I just love that background so much. But I am going to add in all of the die cuts that we did because they're adorable and we don't want them to have their feelings hurt that they were left out. So for the hat, the little pom-pom kind of hangs over. I popped this, so it's foam tape on top of foam tape, folks. But in order for it to be level, I needed to add 2 layers of foam tape to that pom-pom because that's not hanging over the colored part. And then I glued down my gloves. When I first glued it down, I felt like it was a little bit close to the sentiment, and thankfully Tombow Mono Multi Glue gives you a little bit of dry time, so I could just kind of scooch it over and it was no big deal. For the snowflakes, I am adhering them. The 2 larger ones are kind of going to hang off the edge, so I didn't put glue on those because I don't want that in the mail to get pressed down and end up sticking to my white card base. So just putting the glue only basically where I need it to hold. And because they're hanging over, you can kind of fluff them up a little bit so that they have some dimension, which I also really, really love that. For the smaller snowflake, because he doesn't hang, I called him a he, I just apparently decided he's a he, because he doesn't hang over the edge at all, I just put glue only in the center. Then I added some just Morning Dew Nouveau drops just to kind of accent the sentiment. For the next portion, I am going to be, I stamped the sentiment same as I did before. I put the frame in place so I would know where it was. And then I'm going to pop the frame up on some Scotch tape, just kind of like we did with the other one where we popped up the inside piece. I will note that I did trim down this frame quite a bit so that there would be a white edge around, like a white edged border around the colored frame. The foam tape is just a little bit wider than what the frame ended up being cut down to, so I just cut them in half, no big deal. I'm going to center that around my sentiment on my card base and then start building up the other portions of it, the other elements. So here I decided I was going to kind of leave them in the same corner. I guess everybody kind of has a preference for how they do things. I typically tend to put things in the bottom right-hand corner or in the top left-hand corner. Very rarely do I put things in the top right-hand corner or the bottom left-hand corner. That's just me. You do whatever works for you. So I did put just a very small piece of foam tape on that hat as more of a stabilizer. For this particular card, I did have to do that quite a bit. Again, thankful for the Tombow Mono Multi Glue because I ended up scooching that little glove over. Typically, I would just pull it up with like my fingernail, but I do have some darker nail polish on, and I don't want to. I don't know if it's ever happened to you. It's happened to me multiple times where I go to pick something up off of my white card base and I end up dragging my nail polish across it, and then all of a sudden I have like this bright red streak. Because I have a darker gray nail polish on, I didn't want to risk it, so I just used my scissors. I laid out all of my snowflakes so that I would know where they were going to go. That little pink one, I ended up having to just trim a little bit off the top so I could tuck it underneath the frame. This frame on the left-hand side here is where I first realized that I was going to have to do a little bit of surgery to make sure that my snowflakes were stable. I could see that it was kind of like floppy on the left-hand side, and so I cut a very, very small piece of foam tape just to stabilize it. This isn't anything, like I know it's not going to be the only thing that holds my snowflake to the card, so I'm not worried about how small they are. It's really just to make sure that it isn't like sagging over the frame. So most of the time I am just putting the Tombow Mono Multi Glue down on the sides that will be actually glued to the frame, and then just a few little stabilizers. This one was really tricky because it is such an intricate die, and that's one of the reasons why I love it, because I think the snowflake is beautiful. But in order to get that center kind of stabilized, I did have to cut some really teeny tiny pieces. I wanted to fill in the center with something, and here's where I realized I missed my opportunity to make a gorgeous shaker card. But I just felt like the Nouveau drops weren't enough, and I needed something a little bit more substantial. So I used clear sequins. I topped that off with a little bit of glossy accents to make sure that I wasn't going to lose them in transit. And then those are both cards. So I love when you can get a twofer. That makes me super happy. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.